Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Irish launch of INTERREG Northwest Europe's second call for proposals. So today is going to be just a nice short webinar, 1 hour, and you'll hear about the background of INTERREG funding in Ireland, the basics of the currently open call for proposals, as well as how to get advice and find partners for your project idea. So we might move to a little bit of housekeeping. Just ask everyone to please remain on mute. People are encouraged to ask questions by the chat, and there will be a questions and answer session after the speakers' presentations. And also, please just be aware that this session will be recorded, so it's good that you'll be able to watch it back when it'll be uploaded to the Southern Regional Assembly website. So we'll just have a quick look at the agenda for the day. So as I said, a short kind of agenda. We'll have an introduction from our director, overview of Call 2 and the new 21-27 programme from Helena Chabasser from the Joint Secretariat of INTERREG Northwest Europe, coming from Lille in France. Then myself, Sarah Davern, I'm the national contact point for Ireland. I'll do a quick overview on what makes a good INTERREG Northwest Europe project. We'll have time for questions and answers, and then just a few concluding comments. After this webinar, some people had applied to do one-to-one sessions, which is where they have short slots to discuss their project idea with myself as a national contact point and with the Joint Secretariat representative, Helena. Today we had a limited number, so not everyone was able to be selected, but I would just say that if you do have a project idea into the future, we can always set up separately another slot between now and the call deadline. So to start the day, we'll say that we're joined by the Director of the Southern Regional Assembly, David Kelly. He has his camera on there, I think, already. The Southern Regional Assembly has been the managing authority for EU-funded regional programmes and for INTERREG funding for over 20 years. And David, as our director, is particularly familiar with INTERREG Northwest Europe because he's also a member of the monitoring committee. So welcome, David, and thanks for taking the first session of today's webinar.
Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. And as Sarah said, look, you're all very welcome to the Irish launch of the second call of the Northwest Europe programme. Of course, this follows the programme-wide launch earlier on this year, and the very successful first call that the programme had and held earlier this year. So as Sarah said, look, today is an opportunity for you to hear some of the key messages from Helena and also from Sarah about how to put your project together, what makes a good project, and good guidance on the project itself. And for those then who are lucky enough to have the opportunity to have the one-to-one sessions with Sarah later on, I think it's a really good opportunity to take advantage of that. You might just move on to the next slide, Catherine. Look, as Sarah said, look, we in the Regional Assembly have been involved in EU funding for quite some time. Prior to the reform of local government in 2014, we were one of the two previous regional assemblies who were specifically set up as a managing authority for EU funds. But look, following the reform in 2014, we're still one of three, and we're part of the regional tier of government, and we're made up of our region is made up of 10 local authorities of Munster and South Leinster, and our democratic representation is made up of the elected members from these local authorities nominated on to the Regional Assembly. But we've I suppose a key or an important role to play in terms of regional planning, balanced regional development, and the integration of EU policy and funding at the regional and local level. And that's really driven through our regional spatial economic strategies, as Sarah mentioned, our role in the management of EU funded programs, and of course our role in European Territorial Cooperation, or ETC. And as Sarah said, we play a role in terms of being part of the Irish delegation on these programs. So we sit around the table in terms of the monitoring committee role, but also we host the national contact point, so Sarah's role, which is a very important part in terms of that integration or that connection between the program and projects on the ground. But obviously in terms of the I suppose the regional development part, the fundamental framework for development of the region is the regional spatial economic strategy, and this I suppose drives or sets the key objectives or priorities that we try to focus on in terms of the programs and the funding. You might just move on to the next slide, please, Catherine. Just very quickly, I suppose, just on the strategy itself. It is a strategic strategy, a statutory strategic document. I'll eventually get it out, which sets the, I suppose, the strategic vision for the programme or for the region in terms of planning and economic development out to 2020-31. I suppose the overall objective of it is to support the implementation of the National Planning Framework and government economic policies around the whole piece around balanced regional development. And so the regional spatial economic strategies will be the driver of balanced regional development over the next number of years, really strengthening the role of our cities, our metropolitan areas, our key towns to deliver on those overall objectives. And particularly building up the critical mass so as the region will become a really strong counterbalance, if you like, for the greater Dublin region. Next slide, please. The strategy itself, I suppose, falls into three broad areas, and it's quite an ambitious strategy to become, I suppose, the most livable region in Europe, the most green region in Europe, and the most creative and innovative region in Europe. And it's developed around, I suppose, 11 key strategy statements that fulfill or align with all of these three areas. And you can see from the slide, they very much align with the three key policy priority objectives within the EU as well. So in terms of smart and innovative, in terms of the low carbon, and in terms of inclusive. So there is very much a crossover and alignment and linkage with that. The next slide, please. Just in terms of our role in the regional programs, again, there is very much an alignment and a crossover with the regional strategy, in terms of our ambition is that the regional programs will help deliver on the regional spatial economic strategy, with that alignment with the EU priorities as well. Obviously, there's a very strong alignment with EU cohesion policy and regional development in Ireland. I suppose the concept of the regions evolved through the evolution of EU cohesion policy, and over the years, ERDF has invested quite a lot of money in the regions through the regional programs. Just on the slide there, I've put up just a little bit of information about our new program, which is just launched in the last couple of weeks. It was adopted by the Commission about a week and a half ago, and we got a formally launched by Minister McGrath in Dublin just last Tuesday. So there are three key priority areas. The first one is around developing smarter, more competitive regions. The second one is around that low carbon transition, that greener region. And then the third one is around supporting our cities, supporting our urban centres to grow and develop over the next 7 to 10 years. So overall, there's an investment of almost 700 million, which will happen in the context of the regional programme. The next slide, please. I suppose just in terms of European Territorial Cooperation, or ETC, it also has made a significant contribution to the regions or regional development in Ireland over the last number of years. Back in 2018, the regional assemblies carried out a very quick analysis just on, I suppose, the impact that ETC had made at that point in time in the 14-20 programme. And just on the screen, just you'll see some maps and charts, and really highlights, I suppose, the impact. You can see that almost every county in Ireland either was involved in a project or was a partnership in a project. But you can also see, I suppose, the level of ERDF that has come across to Irish partners over the various programs. And I suppose ultimately Ireland tends to do a lot better out of these programs than Ireland contributes to it. So the net impact is always higher than we put into it. So there's really a good opportunity for Irish partners to get involved and to benefit from this. But I think overall, one of the key benefits from it is, funding aside, which is always very important, are the collaborations and the connections that you make through the involvement in these projects. I suppose the other key advantage is that projects that are funded through INTERREG, through ETC, can be a lot more, tend to be a lot more innovative. So you can I suppose, do more creative things with the projects than you can through the mainstream programs. So again, there's a real opportunity there through participation in these programs. Next slide, please, Catherine. I suppose this slide really just sets out, I suppose, the evolution of ETC over the years. And look, you can see that it has grown from quite a small program back in the early 90s to, I suppose, a really key part of cohesion policy, in that it's an objective in its own right. The three strands still continue in the new program. So we have the cross-border, which is the peace program in Northern Ireland. We have the transnational, under which Northwest Europe falls, and then the interregional. So Northwest Europe is the biggest of the transnational programs. So there really is a great opportunity for Irish partners in this respect. And Ireland, as I said, Ireland has always done very, very well through the programs, through the Northwest Europe program. Look, I suppose, as well as the funding mechanism that ETC brings in, we should also probably recognise, I suppose, the wider importance of European territorial cooperation in current EU and, I suppose, global issues. I suppose, particularly, I suppose, for Ireland in the context of Brexit, that opportunity to continue that linkage, that collaboration with our partners in the EU, where I suppose we're a little bit further isolated, if you like, in a geographic term. So it's really important that we continue that collaboration and that cooperation. I suppose it also heightens, I suppose, the sense of solidarity and togetherness with the EU, which comes across with this. And look, and that's, I suppose, particularly important with the sad and devastating situation that's taking place in the Ukraine at the moment. So look, I think ETC and European territorial cooperation plays a crucial and an important role, but also, as I said, creates great opportunities. So look, maybe I'll leave it at that, but just to encourage you all to, I suppose, listen to what's been said today, really take advantage of the opportunity to ask questions, and also take advantage of the opportunity to meet with Sarah later on. So back to you, Sarah.
Thanks, David. Thanks for that overview. Yeah, it's very useful to understand how INTERREG fits within Irish regional strategies and also at the EU level cohesion policy, and just to get a feel for the benefits to Irish citizens generally. So thanks, David. Now we'll move to the next speaker on the agenda, Helena Shabasser. So Helena is coming from the Joint Secretariat Office for INTERREG Northwest Europe in Lille. She's the Project Development Officer, and she works very closely with the network of national contact points. So Helena has experience in the design and the selection and monitoring of INTERREG projects generally. So thank you, Helena, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction, and welcome also from my side, from Lille, from France. I'd like to start off on the first slide with a little bit of context and history for all of you who enjoy history. So, as David already explained, Northwest Europe, INTERREG Northwest Europe is part of a big umbrella of INTERREG programs that basically cover the entire European Union and our neighboring and EU candidate countries. And as such, it's really an integral part to cohesion policy and has been so since 2007. And you're probably also aware that INTERREG celebrated its anniversary, 30-year anniversary last year. So we celebrated 5 periods of INTERREG already since 1991. And what is even more interesting is that the history of cross-border and transnational cooperation goes back way further. And this is where it gets interesting regarding Northwest Europe, because cross-border cooperation and transnational cooperation actually started in the border region of Germany and the Netherlands, as well as between Switzerland and Germany and France. So those were 2 big hotspots of cross-border cooperation in the aftermath of the Second World War, I would say in the late 50s, early 60s. And back then, those cooperations were rather informal. They developed cross-border museum passes and cross-border train lines and train services. And then over the decades, this became more and more formalized until we started with INTERREG in 1991. And now I'd like to jump a little bit forward into the more recent history on the next slide. So in the previous program period, we still had the UK as part of our program area. And just some key figures to give you an image of the program. Yep. In the last period, we funded around 100 projects with more than 1,000 project partners. And we had 378 million euros of ERDF allocated to projects. And as David already mentioned, INTERREG Northwest Europe with this budget is the biggest transnational program. In Ireland, we dedicated around 10% of that budget, and we had 52 projects with Irish participation and also 5 projects led by Irish partners. So there's a lot of experience and also leadership from the Irish side. Here on this map, you can just get a picture of the partner distribution, and it really shows nicely that Ireland is very well represented compared to the other regions in Northwest Europe. Of course, we also had a strong involvement of Scottish partners and, of course, the Amsterdam, Lille, Dortmund triangle further down south. Next slide. Yeah, so I also would like to share a little bit on the quadruple helix involvement from the Irish side. So here you see that Irish partners very strongly are represented via SMEs and enterprises, as well as the higher education and research sector. And this pretty much reflects the whole the repetition of institutions across the whole Northwest Europe program area. So it looks approximately the same for the entire area. What is very nice to see is that in Ireland, we also have a big share of public authorities involved, which is, if you look at the overall program area, public authorities on a local and regional level are a little bit less represented, and we would really encourage them to get on board. Next slide. Yeah, so in this program period, we have 7 countries in Ireland. All the counties are part of the program area. And also next to Ireland, we have Belgium, France, Germany, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and Switzerland. We have a little bit of a lower budget as compared to the previous period. We have 287 million euros of ERDF allocated this time to projects. And what is really, really important is that we co-finance 60% of your project budget. It means if you get approved, you will have to fund the other 40% yourself or find national co-financing match funding. Yeah, next slide. Another really, really important part is that we are a transnational program, as already mentioned a couple of times. This means your project will have to have at least 3 project partners from 3 different countries. The lead partner has to be from the program area, and other project partners from outside the program area are possible, but it has to be very well justified. And you might be asking yourself what the average project partnership size is. And judging from the last program period, I would say it's an average of 10 project partners and 5 countries represented. But there really is no magical formula to make your project successful in that sense. It really has to be a tailor-shaped partnership that serves the purpose of your project. So yeah, there's no one answer to how big a partnership should be. So I've given a lot of information on the framework conditions, and you probably really want to know when is your next chance to submit your project idea. So we open a call for proposals approximately every 9 months. So I would rather say once a year. And it's a 2-step procedure, our application process, and Sarah will tell you more about this later on. At the moment, we have open call 2 in November. So call 1, I won't go into detail because it's a bit too late for you to submit. And the projects that are approved will start in March next year. So, but that's not relevant anymore at the moment. What's important for you is call 2. It's open at the moment. The deadline for step 1 will be 9th of February. And if you pass the first step and member states approve your project idea, then you get to the second step, and you will be informed about the decision in April. Yep, in April. And then you will have 3 months to really fine-tune your project and submit in July. And if your idea is approved, you can start in autumn next year, in October approximately. Next slide. Yeah, if you're thinking of a smaller project, or if your idea is more on a smaller scale, then we also open a call for small-scale projects, also in February. So February will be a really important month next year for Northwest Europe and for our applicants. We have this small-scale projects call for projects with a maximum budget of 800,000 euros. So there you only have to address one kind of activity. Sarah will explain later more on this. And it's generally a project with a shorter time span and partnership size, and yeah, a reduced scope. So we will also have a webinar on this. So I would like to invite you to join us there if you're interested. It will be on the 28th of February. And yeah, subscribe to the social media and our newsletter to be kept up to date also regarding the webinar that we will do. And yeah, you can learn more on the website on that, of course. The priority areas we have, a very crucial part. Does your project idea fit with our themes? We have 5 themes, 5 priorities, and Northwest Europe has a really, really big and strong green focus. So the first 3 priorities are dedicated to climate and environment, energy transition, and the circular economy. And then we have innovation and resilience and an inclusive society as a priority. On the next slide, I can give you some details on that. So yeah, here you see the green specific objectives. So that would be nature protection and biodiversity enhancement, climate change and disaster risk prevention. And then under energy transition, we fund projects that improve energy efficiency, as well as those that support renewable energy production. And the circular economy does not only focus on circular economy, but also on resource efficiency. Next slide. Yep. Under innovation and resilience, we don't have like a thematic direction. We generally fund research and innovation and the uptake of advanced technologies. And here it's really important to say that we don't fund just research projects. That would be the focus of the Horizon program. We are very much implementation oriented. So the innovation that you have in your project, we want it to be implemented and taken up. Under priority 5, inclusive society, we have a mix. We fund projects that support access to the health system and also to the labor market. And we also fund projects on culture and tourism for a more inclusive society. But I won't go into more details here because we all have it on the next slide. In our fact sheets, if you visit our website, we have ready-made really good summaries on all these specific objectives. So if you have a project idea that might fit under one or under more specific objectives, do check out the fact sheets. You have the definition of our objective there, the target groups that we envisage, the activities, and also the results that we envisage So that's an easy and quick way for you to check if there's an overlap between your idea and the program. And with that, I'll pass on to Sarah.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you for providing that overview of the Interreg Northwest Europe funding, and thank you to the people that have been sharing comments and questions in the chat. So I just encourage you to please keep doing that, because the questions and answers session will be coming up after the presentations. We have a colleague, Alice, monitoring the chat for your question, and she'll pose them to Helena and I in about 5 or 10 minutes. I can just maybe answer the first question that I saw there myself, that yes, indeed, this session is being recorded and the slides will also be made available on the Southern Regional Assembly website in the coming days. So just to let you know that. Now, as I am the national contact point for Ireland and Interreg Northwest Europe funding, I'll just take you quickly through a few slides which highlight what Interreg Northwest Europe considers to be a good project. So we'll move to the next slide, please. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the target groups. So what you have here, this little image, is what we're calling the quadruple helix, and it's covering the private sector, SMEs and businesses, the public sectoral associations or local, national, regional authorities, academia, universities, public research centres, and civil society, so NGOs, lobby organisations and citizens groups or community development groups. So what we're asking a good project to do is consider who do you need in your project in order to ensure that the results happen and that what you want to do can be truly rolled out or even scaled up in Ireland and in other countries. So consider who do you need as a full partner, who do you need maybe to advise you or observe, and who will be your final beneficiaries. So a good project really takes good consideration across the full spectrum of society, this quadruple helix. You don't need everyone necessarily in your project, but to have a good think about who you need to really make the results a success. So in the next slide, we get into a little bit the details of what types of projects we fund. So Interreg Northwest Europe, a little bit different maybe to research funding. It's actually almost quite prescriptive. We actually expect minimum 2 out of 3 of these types of activity. On the left column in the blue circles, you can see the types of activity. So any project must include 2 out of 3 of these. For example, strategies and action plans, pilot actions or solutions, or joint training schemes. So 2 out of 3 of those. And what we want to see, also fairly prescriptive, from the strategies and action plans, we want to see them not just designed, but actually in the life of the project, taken up by the key stakeholders, by organizations. Pilot actions and solutions, we want to see them finished in the life of the project and then taken up or scaled up by the key players. And the joint training schemes, we want to see them actually completed by a certain number of participants during the project life. So of course, the thematic of this work could be wide and varied across those 5 priority areas, but a strong project would have these elements. In the next slide, please. Another key part, and sometimes a stumbling block, is you really need to clearly define why you're doing this project. So why is this project needed across different countries? Why are you not just doing this project in Ireland with Enterprise Ireland support or SEAI or whoever it may be nationally? Why do you need EU funding across 3 countries to make your idea happen? And that has to be very well described and justified. The way to do that justification tends to be that you're really looking at what are the common challenges and opportunities that your project idea will address across a minimum of 3 countries, and what is the change that you're going to bring for the citizens living in those countries. And often it helps to identify the profile of the regions or territories across the 3 countries, you know, what they have in common. They might be all rural, they might be all peri-urban or so on. What is the common challenge that they're facing, or what is the common solution that they could all apply? And finally, and importantly, and alluded to by David earlier on, your project needs to be embedded in the overall strategic framework. So we're not operating in a vacuum here. Your project needs to fit well regionally within, for example, the regional spatial and economic strategies within Ireland, the cohesion policy itself at that high level, things like the European Green Deal, very high level, or then back nationally, for example, the Climate Action Plan in Ireland would cover a lot of our priority areas. So just thinking through why your project is needed in different countries, what is the change you really hope to bring, and how does it fit with where the policies are going in general in Ireland, regionally, nationally, and then across the European Union in the other countries. In the next slide, just to have another look. So your project idea needs to fit strategically, but it also needs to fit in what the program wants to fund. Helena explained briefly the 5 priority areas and that each one of them has specific objectives. Again, I remind you that, as Helena mentioned, there are fact sheets for each of them. So that's really important to take a good look at, because you have to choose just one specific objective. So just one of those fact sheets. You have to decide which one your idea best matches, and that is how you'll be evaluated. So you choose, go through them, they're on our website. You might think you automatically know which one is for you, but I would normally advise people to read through a few, because sometimes the very specific requirements might actually match your project idea, which might be in, for example, tourism. You would straight away go to the tourism specific objective. But depending on what you want to do, if it's a digital solution, perhaps that project idea might fit very well under actually not the tourism priority, but the innovation and resilience priority. So take a look, take your time, read through the fact sheets and see which one matches best your project idea. Your project needs to have 3 specific objectives, and it needs to have those very clearly outlined outputs and results. And the next slide, we always say to people as well, and Elena mentioned this is kind of different to other EU funding that you might have come across under Horizon or even Erasmus+. We're not looking for super innovation. A good project doesn't actually need to reinvent the wheel. So what we're looking for is a different definition of innovation, where maybe you're developing or testing new approaches or existing approaches, but in a different sector or a different region where they could be further rolled out and further taken up by different places in Northwest Europe. Another very important element in your project proposal is the long-term effects. So the long-term effects, so what happens when the money stops? Those activities, we expect them to be already included in your work packages, and they must be clearly linked to the work package outputs. So we really are trying to ensure that there's a long-term impact to the funding. And the next slide. So this is a quick overview of the application process. So you have your idea. There's a call for proposals, currently one open, deadline in February, 9th February. The step 1 application, it's fairly short. We call it almost a concept note. It's around 8 to 10 pages when you put it into a Word document. And then that gets submitted. If that is accepted and you are considered eligible and you're well evaluated, then you are invited to progress to step 2. At step 2, we ask for a much more comprehensive analysis of your project idea. So that's where we get into the very detailed level of the budget, the work package activities, exactly the outputs, indicators, and so on. But step 1, high level concept note, just one figure for your budget in step 1. We do not ask about the co-funding. We do not ask for work package breakdown or anything like that. Just high level budget, high level objectives of your project idea, and who is in your consortium. Are the right people, the right players to make it a success included? So step 1, fairly easy. Step 2, a lot more detailed. And then the final stage, of course, is at step 2. If you're successful, you get the grant agreement and they start the legal processes so that you can receive the drawdown of the money. So the next slide. So step 1, as I was saying, shorter, easier in theory because it's just 8 to 10 pages, but actually this is where you need to do your most strategic thinking, because you really need to answer that question: why is your project transnational and not just national in Ireland? You know, trying to fund something very local, it will immediately be observed that this is an Irish-centric, that there's no need to work together with other countries. You know, you really have to make that effort to show why you want to work with other countries. What is the common problem and what is the common solution that you could work together with these people? Is your project idea a good fit to what the program wants to fund? And that's again back to the fact sheets. Are the key stakeholders involved in the consortium? Do you have the required people to make it a success, to roll out your idea? That could be the universities, that could be the local authorities or a state agency such as SEAI. Do you have the right people involved of advising you or full partners in the project, civil society for community consultations and so on? What are the results that you expect to deliver? And the budget, as I said, just one figure, very high level at step one. We have in our website a program manual that you can get tips. So step one, the application process has to be through our online system, the Joint Electronic Monitoring System. It's called the GEMS. You can see there on the left what they kind of are looking for. It has a user manual. You can go in and have a look at this on our website. And we would actually advise you to do that, especially if you're the project lead, so that you can just see what to expect. There's a Word version of the application form available on the website as well, but I would not leave it too late to register. The next step. So yeah, some hints and tips in general. Don't underestimate the time needed for step one. So it's short, but you need to have your consortium ready and your idea very coherent. So take your time, identify that coherent thread. Why does this project need to be across 2 countries minimum? And have a look at existing projects in a similar area, because as I said, Interreg Northwest Europe's not usually funding something very new. Probably something similar has been done. That's not a problem. We just want to know, have you looked at what's been done? Are you building on it? Are you trying to synergize with it? And that the information is not lost or lessons learned from previous projects. Take your time to set up your partnership. The key players are involved. The drafting, 8 to 10 pages, not much at step one, but takes a bit of thinking. And especially when you're working with international partners, you also might need to do a bit of proofreading on the English. You know, we have that advantage in Ireland at least. Then also just to highlight that each project needs to have an abstract, and the abstract has to be translated into 3 languages in order for it to be submitted. So allow your partners, usually would do that with you. They have to be identical abstracts, and they have to be submitted on time with the step one. So just take your time. That could be a reason for being ineligible if you don't have that done correctly. As I said in the previous slide, take a bit of time as well to just get to know and fill up the GEMS system, just checking out the character counts and all the requirements there. And as I mentioned again, the Word version of the application form is available on our website. The next slide, please. So finding partners. So we have an online applicant community that you can see there. There's the website. We'll be sharing these slides as well on our website, so we'll let you know. This is interesting to find international partners. You can also browse project ideas that are existing and that are in the pipeline. So you can reach out to people, you can read their abstract, and you might think, okay, that could be something for us. We could get involved, and you can click in, make contact with the person, and yeah, just see if you could find a way to join an existing consortium. Likewise, you can put up your own project idea, and people might reach out to you. And maybe that's something I'll just take a moment to say, that you know, not everyone on the call will feel that they have the capacity to become a lead partner, and that's okay. There's various ways to get involved in Interreg Northwest Europe. You can, of course, if you have a great project idea and you feel you have the capacity to lead a full consortium of approximately 9 or 10 partners across different countries, please go for it and reach out to me and I'll help you. But many of you might not feel in that position. Perhaps you prefer to do things like join an existing consortium in your topic. The online applicant community is great for that. And similarly, the final level, let's say, so you could be full partner lead, you could be a full partner in another existing consortium, and then the least demanding way to participate would be what we call an observer partner. And that's just where you don't receive any EU funds, so you don't need to bring any co-funding, but you are entitled to listen in and give advice, crucially, to the consortium, and that might help you field and learn and be in a better position next call, to maybe be a full partner or even the lead in the future. So the next slide. So there's a few, yeah, there we go. So in general, Irish partners, how to find advice and find partners and keep up to date. We have an Irish partners mailing list. There's a link there. The mailing list is set up by myself in the Southern Region Assembly. So what I do there is I ask you for your usual, your name, address, and so on, email address. But there is an important element to that mailing list sign up, which is the keywords. So please, I invite you to click in, put in your keywords, and that helps me to find you if I'm approached by an international consortium looking for Irish partners. So something very specific, for example, expertise in mollusks and extracting a particular type of product from sea animals to make plastic or some, I don't even know what people do, but something very specific. You put in your keywords, and when somebody comes to me from Holland or from France, Belgium, Luxembourg, they say, Sarah, do you know anyone in Ireland that could be interested in joining our consortium that has this type of expertise? And I can go to my database with your keywords and I can find you. So I really encourage everyone to please do that. And you might, no obligation. I just send you the information and you decide then if you want to join a project. I can also offer to have a look at your project idea with you. We can have these one-to-one sessions where I can help you guide you maybe to the correct specific objectives. This will be more for people interested in being a project lead. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. In general, there's the Joint Secretariat newsletter, different to the Irish one, very useful, covers all the countries and tends to have nice pieces on existing project successes. And also the community platform that we mentioned. And finally, we have regularly these project idea forums that are organized by the Joint Secretariat. Some of you might have attended or you'd heard of the one that we held last week in Germany. And the next one probably the next one won't be now till the end of next year. But those are interesting in terms of being face-to-face. People put up posters of their project ideas and you can walk around and see if you're interested in joining a consortium in that way. But the online community platform does something similar, but in a digital way. And the next slide. So yeah, I think we've been through most of these, but just a summary page here of guidance documents. So the fact sheets, very important for the specific objectives. We have another sheet, which is the intervention logic, so that coherent thread of your project idea. This fact sheet here can guide you, intervention logic. The two-step application process, there's another PDF that you can download from our website, just explains that. The NWE regions, that's interesting because particularly if you're project lead and you're looking for partners, in the map that Helena showed earlier, you might have noticed that not all of France and not all of Germany are actually eligible, just the northern part of France and the western part of Germany. So this NWE regions, you can actually just check carefully to see if everyone you're involving in your partnership is eligible. And of course, the frequently asked questions on our website have a lot of relevant answers to common things like about co-funding. So I think that's it from my side. Just ask maybe Helena to turn back on your camera, and perhaps Alice, if you're available, because Alice has been tracking the chat.
Yeah, no problem at all. We have a number of questions in, so we'll try and get through as many of them as possible. So the first one then for yourself, Helena, is can UK organisations be partners in a project?
Right. Well, the UK left the programme and therefore UK partners are not eligible anymore, but they can still be associated strategic organisations in the project, such as Sarah explained before. So they can have an observer position in projects, but they will not get any funding.
Okay, thank you. And another question that we have in here is the minimum number of partners required for the small scale project? What is the minimum number of partners required for the small scale project? Also, do you need any specific partner type on this project? Example, SME, university, etc.
It's just the same minimum as for regular projects. So 3 partners from 3 different countries and the lead partner from the program area. Other than that, no. What was the other part of the question?
Do you need any specific partner type on this project? For example, an SME or a university?
What applies is the quadruple helix principle. So we encourage all projects to have partners from the 4 areas involved, but it's not a must. It has to be justified and has to make sense.
I think maybe could add to Elena there that actually the small scale projects, the purpose of this tends to be that they're looking to target applicants that maybe might not have had access to this type of large funding in the past. So it's very interesting for local authorities, and we'd be pleased to see public sector, local or regional authorities, and maybe civil society in particular applying. But indeed all stakeholders are welcome.
Perfect. We also have a comment in and a question to say, may I please check when project implementation will start if applicants are successful in the next call for proposals?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. Can they check when project implementation will start if applicants are successful in the next call for proposals? So when the implementation phase will start?
Well, for call 1, the implementation phase will start in March, April next year.
March or April.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And for yourself, Sarah, how detailed should the budget be at step 1?
So yeah, just repeat there that at step 1, we're not asking for much, just that one figure actually for the whole project idea. And we're not asking for the breakdown of the co-funding. So the EU will only provide 60% of that total figure, and the consortium partners need to bring 40% of their own budgets every time.
Okay. And for the smaller scale INTERREG Northwest Europe projects, what would be the required number of countries and partners?
We don't have any maximum for that. It has to make sense. Your maximum budget will be 800,000 euros total eligible costs. So that's the limit, you know.
Yeah. Okay. And what has been the success rate for INTERREG Northwest Europe proposals?
Should I take it or you, Sarah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in call 1, we had 76 submissions, and in step 1, 34 were approved. So that's about 45%. And then you have step 2, which will minimize it a little bit further.
Perfect. Okay. And Sarah, how many work packages are usually recommended?
So actually there's 3 work packages are only possible. You can have less, but you can't have more than 3. So that's a bit unusual for people that are maybe used to other types of funding. And even in the past ourselves, you could have had an unlimited number of work packages. So that's something different. Usually what I say to people is that the work packages are usually linked to your project specific objectives. So you'd maybe have 3 specific objectives for your project idea, and you'd have a work package per objective. And then within that, you have communications activities, and project management, and long-term effects across the 3 and where you see fit. Now, all of that only really comes into play at step 2. So for step 1, you don't need to worry about those details, but just maybe be aware that your 3 project-specific objectives become work packages, really.
Okay, perfect. And following on from that, then we have just what is the success rate from step 1 to step 2?
So just let Elena repeat, maybe.
Well, from step 1 to step 2, we can't say it yet because the deadline for submission will be mid-December.
Okay.
But I would say overall, in judging from the last period, it's 30%.
30%, okay. And what is the general scale of a project? Example, project numbers, budget, or duration of the project?
I think Elena, oh sorry, we always have to say that there's no standard. So right. The projects should be as big as they need to be, with as big a budget as you need, with the right stakeholders involved. Okay, so that's the official line. Now, as Elena pointed out earlier, we can give you some averages and statistical analysis from the last period. So usually we had projects, of course, the minimum 3 countries, and what we saw was around 9 or 10 partners usually per consortia. The budgets, again, if you average out the numbers, some were bigger, some were smaller. We had average sort of 3 to 5 million budget, more or less average, but we had some much bigger and some much smaller. So really you have to step away and just think across the 3 countries, who do I need in my project to make it work, and how much money do we need? Some projects would be very heavy on staff, and some would be actually looking for investment, capital investment funding, and that might be very expensive. So it just really depends on what you're doing.
And also, if I may add, if you want to adjust your budget that you submitted in step 1 and you want to adjust it in step 2, that's no problem. It can be higher, it can be lower, no problem.
Perfect. And one other question is around how many times you can apply. Can you apply more than once?
Yes, I can say that as well, Elena, if you like. So rejected projects in step 1 can resubmit as long as you take into account the reasons for your lack of success. So usually you'll get some high level guidance, not too in depth, but you'd be expected to make some adjustments if you were to resubmit.
Okay. And how can we encourage local authorities to join a project idea or go for a different thematic than the ones they've been used to?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and particularly in the Irish context, I suppose. I think a lot of local authorities are very interested in accessing EU funding, and sometimes they just don't know how to go about it. So I think by the stakeholder who asked that question, being here today and informing yourself is probably a really good first step, because then you can go to the county council and perhaps encourage them to see that there could be a niche here. Usually county councils have, as with any organisation listening today, they have their own strategic plan, they have county development plans, they have climate action plans and decarbonisation zones that they have to achieve. And so if your project idea or what you'd like to do with them could help them achieve some of those goals, they probably would be interested, and especially if you're willing to take on some of the work of the writing. Sometimes it's just a capacity issue. So that would be my advice.
Sorry, go ahead, Helena.
If I may add something technical on that aspect, capacity-wise, in the new period we have simplified cost options. So the accounting and the administrative effort will be much lower than previously. We have a lot of flat rates and simplified cost options. So that might encourage smaller organizations and local organizations as well.
Okay. Another question that has come in around funding rates. It's is the funding rate for universities 60% as well? And if yes, how do universities normally fund the other 40%?
I can take that, Elena. So yes, the 60% funding rate is the same for every type of organisation. So from civil society to university to local authority, it doesn't matter. You get your project idea and the EU will fund 60% of it. Now, universities often tend to use staff salaries as the co-funding solution, but you could also have grant funding from another source, as long as it's not EU grant funding. You could use, for example, Irish national funding as your match, as we call it, that 40% the match. So yeah, staff salaries, other grants, sometimes private sector, if they're interested in the output of the project, they might be in industry, might be interested in giving you a donation in cash. Philanthropic donations are also fine. So those various solutions.
Okay. Another comment that has come in is the various programme documents refer to place-based activities. Given the size of the programme area, can you offer any further guidance on partnership size and if there is a need to include the local delivery partner plus more strategic partners in each country the partnership will work in, understanding that not all countries need to be represented?
Okay. Would you like to have a go, Elena?
It's a long question now.
To you, Sarah. It's quite complex, or I didn't quite, I don't know, I'm not sure.
I can jump in actually. So, okay, I think the question really is, do we need to have everyone across the quadruple helix involved in every country? And the answer is that you have to decide yourself. So who do you need to make your project work across 3 countries? Different countries have different players and different responsibilities. In Ireland, maybe the could be a government responsibility, whereas in France, the topic might be actually led by regional authorities. So you just need to decide yourself and have a good analysis of each of the country locations and your topic. Who do you need involved to make your project idea a success?
Okay. Okay, another question then is, can partners be added for step 2 after a project has been accepted in step 1?
Yes, they can.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And for small scale projects, what is the minimum duration?
18
or
months.
is there a minimum duration?
18 months is the maximum duration. 18 months is the maximum. But yeah, we don't give a minimum because it takes a minimum amount of time anyway to set the project up, to get your activities implemented, to close the project down. So
good.
So
Alice, I think we're going to have to maybe have one final question, and if David would like to turn on the camera, if you're available, David might add some conclusions after the last question.
Perfect. Okay. We do have a lot of questions here, so anything that we don't get to, we can come back to afterwards. Local projects. So what we'll go with is, okay, this is quite long. Okay, so the biggest challenge they're facing is finding appropriate partners. Fingers crossed, and what's the best way for this? But I do think you addressed that in the presentations yourselves. There's various links that will appear on the Southern Assembly website that they'll be able to go in and link in with other partners.
also, it will help to look up projects that were implemented in a similar field or in a similar topic and check the partnerships. So that will for sure help, and also join the online community to share your idea and look for partners.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. That's it for the questions for now.
Thanks, Alice. So David is back, yes. Would you like to perhaps give us a few words of your impressions of the day and perhaps some advice going forward?
Yeah, sure, Sarah. Yeah, no, thanks very much. Look, absolutely really encouraged and fascinated by the, I suppose, the engagement and the number of questions that have come in, and it really shows that, I suppose, the interest in the program, and look, I suppose, reflects the opportunities that are there. Just one question in particular that struck me around how to encourage local authorities to get involved. And look, I think there really is a really good opportunity for local authorities to get involved in a program like this, and there are some really good examples of projects that have been delivered involving local authorities. So I would say, partially, talk to some of your colleagues as well in some of the local authorities that have actually been involved. And I think part of the problem sometimes is that it appears sometimes that the involvement in EU funded projects is quite bureaucratically heavy, and that sometimes tends to kind of frighten and scare certain partners away. But as Elena said, like, the introduction of the simplified cost options has made that so much easier now for this time around. So yeah, so I would encourage you to talk to Sarah, talk to some of your colleagues in other local authorities, and just see how to navigate this, because, as I said, there really are some great opportunities to get involved, and really good opportunities to learn and build on I suppose, ideas and partnerships that are happening across the region. Look, I suppose just maybe just a couple of quick comments, quick conclusions, I suppose, from today. I suppose, look, as we said at the outset, that cohesion policy is critically important for Ireland, for the development of Irish regions, and ETC and INTERREG and North West Europe in particular plays a huge role in that, in, I suppose, supporting the development of the regions, in reducing regional disparities, and getting involved in opportunities like the climate change agenda and so on. So it really, you know, it really is a good opportunity and continues to be. Irish partners have always been very good at getting involved. We've always worked very well with other partners across the partnering countries. So that whole transnationality, identifying common challenges, working together to deliver on common solutions have always worked. And Irish partners have always been very good and successful in that. I know Sarah pointed out the opportunity for Irish partners to be 3 different ways. We can be a lead partner, we can be a normal partner, or an associate partner, but maybe don't be afraid of being lead partners. Again, there are good examples of Irish partners which have led projects. University of Limerick have led the BioWill project. The Southeast Energy Agency, formerly the Three Counties Energy Agency, have led projects around energy efficiency. So there are really good examples where Irish partners have taken the lead and have delivered on successful projects. So again, I would say, as Sarah and Helena pointed out, look at the Northwest Europe website, look at the other projects that have been delivered. It'll give you ideas, but it'll also give you a sense of what has happened. So there are really good opportunities, you know, for our regions, for the regional economies, to tackle issues around climate change, to tackle issues around health, around employment, around sustainable tourism, sustainable development. So really build on these opportunities and go with them. There are opportunities for all types of organizations. So we talk about the triple helix, so that's academia, so third level institutions, our local authorities in the public sector, our community groups, but also companies, industry, SMEs. So opportunities for us all to work together and to build on really good projects and good opportunities. Look, again, just to reiterate, why should we apply? Why should we get involved? First thing is, it's an opportunity to attract funding. It's an opportunity to get some funding to do projects that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to deliver through some of the mainstream funding that's out there. So it is an opportunity to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more innovative about what you can do whilst working with partners across Europe, to learn from what they're doing, but also to even impart some of our knowledge in terms of how we do things better, and build on that. I suppose the important thing to remember is that it's you guys that are listening here today that really are going to be the success of the program going forward. So the project idea that you have now could actually be one of the, I suppose, most innovative, creative projects to help deliver on the objective. So I suppose don't be afraid of that. Bring your ideas forward, put your project ideas up on the website, look for other partners, speak to Sarah and Elena and so on, and get involved. There was a lot of references to various documents highlighted today on the website and Sarah's newsletter and so on. So again, encourage you to look at those and really make yourself familiar with those and reach out to Sarah, who will support you on your journey along the way, either as a lead partner, looking for partners, as a normal partner, as an associate partner. The help and advice is there every step of the way to get you through. I think that's the important thing, that you're not on your own in this, and it can result in a very fruitful and successful implementation or successful project. But it's also then, I suppose, the collaboration capital, if you like, that comes after that, building the relationship with other organizations across Europe. So look, I leave it at that. Maybe just to thank Sarah and Elena for their contribution today. Thank the team behind the scenes, Alice, Catherine and Anna for keeping the technology and everything running on time. And look, just wish you all success with your projects, and thanks for being with us today, and keep in touch.
Thank you, David. We'll sign off.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.